Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pursuit of Relentless podcast. You have your host, Alaina, and today I'm excited for you guys to get access to Dr. Kevin Gazzara. He is running a business called Magma Leadership Solutions. Sorry, I messed that up. And I'm really excited to get access to your brain for the next little while and just help people get more view of what your life has looked like and how they can maybe follow in your footsteps. So welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm hoping I get a chance to share my best tips and tricks for any of those people that are listening that are interested in becoming an entrepreneur or leaving the corporate world. I'll give you the things that I had put in place that allowed me to do that. And I've been a successful entrepreneur for the last 16 years after I spent almost 30 years in the corporate world. Awesome time, great learning. The one thing I will say is being your own boss is significantly different than working for someone else. And I'd probably never go back. At the same time, I wouldn't have changed anything I've done in the past.
Yeah, it's a different world for sure being an entrepreneur. I actually met some people this morning and he was like, I'm an entrepreneur. And I was like, yeah, man, like it's just different, right? He's like, yeah, it's ultimate freedom. It's freedom if you let that balance exist in your life. Like I know it's hard for some of us to slow down. It's hard for some of us to, take on the relaxation side of things, but a lot of people like the relaxation side of things. So it's just figuring out what works for you, but using your drive and ambition to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's something you have to be ready for. I think one of the things that I have found, Alaina, is that I probably do a call once or twice a month with friends, colleagues, people I've worked with that are interested to I like to do what you're doing currently with Magma Leadership Solutions, providing leadership development for, companies all around the world, doing executive coaching and those kind of things. And I don't think that a lot of people prepare for that. And hopefully I'll give you the best tips I've got to prepare for that. So when you make that transition over, whether you have to make it over, because a lot of people get downsized, that's usually when the calls come in. It's like, oh, I got downsized. I didn't expect that to happen. And now I want to go do something different. Here's my opportunity rather than just go look for another job. Mm-hmm. And it's like, just hire me and, pay me $10,000 a day and I'll just work one day a month and everything will be great. It's like, well, it doesn't quite work like that.
No. I think a lot of people think it works like that. It's like, oh, you're just going to be automatically wealthy. I'm like, no, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication. It's 24/7 and 365, it's running a business versus, I don't know, just being a part of something else. I like being a part of other things, but at the same time, I like running my own business as well, because it gives you the opportunity to really find out who you are, as well as just going, hey, how can I serve other people?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is that you pretty much have full control. I mean, you have the environment you have to deal with. At the same point in time, you have full control. So if you get up and you spend the day lounging around, drinking coffee, a little bit more time scrolling through social media. At the end of the day, you haven't really made good progress. That's all on you, right? So, yeah. I mean, you can do some of those slack off a little bit in the corporate world, and it has, as long as it's not continuous, it has very little impact. But it's really all about you, and it's really being. And we'll talk about that in what I call the 6 Ps of being successful as an entrepreneur. So we'll talk about the details of that, and hopefully in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd love to dig right into that. I'm like, well, I've got my pen ready. So, yeah, please do.
Yeah. So as I had mentioned before, I end up spending, once or twice a month, I get a phone call from colleagues or friends, whatever, that have been downsized or thinking about, leaving the corporate world. In fact, one of them is due to arrive tomorrow. We're going to visit together, and he's planning his exit. and what's going to happen next. And I think one of the big challenges is that most people use that as an event, right? And they don't create a process prior so that they're set up for success.
Yeah.
So the key is that you really need to begin thinking about how to make the transition. For me, so I had spent 18 years at Intel, wonderful place, great learning company. Wouldn't change my experience there. I was a product manager. I managed design teams. I was a general manager for them. But the last 10 years there, I spent managing Intel University and Intel's management leadership development, what they called residential programs for the world. We used to do 2,500 managers and leaders in 10 different countries each year.
Wow.
When I retired from Intel in 2007, and I took two of my colleagues with me to start up Magma Leadership Solutions. Intel had just finished training their 40,000th manager. So I got pretty good at that. And, one of my goals was to retire at 50. So I was able to do that and then do my next phase of life. And I really wanted to give back and work with organizations that didn't have, $10 million budgets to help really develop the leaders within their organization. So we work with lots of small to medium-sized companies. They get, high ticket price learning and development for a fraction of the cost. So it's pretty rewarding. We've been doing that now for it'll be 16 years in about 10 days.
Wow.
So it's been very, very rewarding. But one of the points I want to make is that this didn't happen. We didn't decide to do this, on January 1st, 2007, and then leave and say, okay, now what do we do? I had a great mentor at Intel, Cecilia. She was the HR director for HR, right? So when I went and found a mentor at Intel, and I would encourage people to find mentors that will work with them, will hold them accountable, will bring some additional wisdom in there. But we had a 10-year plan, and the 10-year plan was to retire at 50, and and there were lots and lots of elements of that. So we kept adding those and staying on track with those. And we'll go through some of these in the 6 Ps. But when I was ready to leave Intel, or when I did leave Intel, I was ready. Right, we had all of the things in place, so that transition didn't feel like a cliff. Right, it was certainly different. I think one of the things people need to recognize is when you're working in an organization, having that accessibility to other people, to have that tribe or that social support quickly goes away. And if you don't have alternative methods to maintain that, it can get pretty lonely, as well as it can feel pretty stifling.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. I don't know what I would do without my mentorship. I can call them at any time and be like, hey, what about this? So I just made the decision that I'm moving to British Columbia, and that's where I'm from. And I was like, cool, I'm going to go home and get to be with my family. And then everyone's just like, you're doing what? Like, you're doing what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going home. And it's it's a new chapter in the story of my life, but I'm like, I'm sitting here going, wow, look at this opportunity, right? I can still maintain my business in Alberta and across Canada. I can expand into the US, but I want to focus on British Columbia because I believe that they need my help the most. And so I'm like, well, let's go. Like, let's do it. And now everything's just like lining up perfectly. And I'm like, okay, this is it. So if you guys see my office is a little different than my last interviews, it's because,
Yes.
it's time to go. So,
Well, good for you. Change
cool.
is always hard for people
Yeah.
in general, and it's really what keeps us growing.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for taking the next step. And the beauty today, particularly if you're providing, if you're really helping people learn and grow,
Mhm.
whether it's through leadership programs or coaching or mentoring, whatever, the nice thing is that technology has caught up to where it needs to be, and you
Yeah.
can do things like, doing Zoom and communication over the internet, and lots of methods for texting and slacking and messaging and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
So, all
It's
right.
been an incredible learning curve because I did it all wrong. So, using my personal story, maybe you can give me some coaching on the 6 Ps. But I quit my job because we didn't have stability. And I was getting really mad. And I was like, I thought I signed up for a career that was going to provide that stability and that guaranteed lifestyle for me. And it just
Mhm.
was not the case. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I was a heavy equipment operator. I thought I was going to love that. It was not for me. But I listened to a lot of personal development books and I started just
Mhm.
really digging into the mindsets of the successful people in the world. And I'm sitting here looking at the Ed Milet's and then John Maxwell's and, Tony Robbins. And I'm just studying these people and looking at them going, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Because I want their life. And why am I taking advice from people whose life I don't want? And
Mhm.
even though it's big and scary, I'm a red seal pastry chef turned heavy equipment operator turned financial planner. Like I'm sitting here going, all right, well, this is it. It's it's just when you follow that passion and you follow your heart and you go, hey, I'm gonna take a chance on myself. Um, you should go for it because it's gonna work out if you make sure that it works out, right? But I did it way too soon. I barely had my client base, and I was just like, I'm going full time, and then I was like, oh no, like I wish I had my systems in place, and I feel like I'm just starting to get everything perfectly, running rhythmically. But it been a it's been a rough couple of years learning those lessons, right?
Yeah, well, let me give you kind of the 6 tips, this what I call the 6 Ps of any of those people listening, of what I would recommend, the things that we had done and put in place, so that that transition wasn't quite as the shock of being thrown in the ice cold water. So,
Turbulent.
yes. So I think the first thing is, for the first P is, and these are in no particular order, by the way. It's just a process that I kind of going back and reflecting on what we had done both before, during, kind of, and after the consultancy started, was, the first one is you need to have what we call product, right? So, and the product really needs to be unique and differentiated. I call it your shtick, right? It should have kind of a combination. It doesn't necessarily have to be different than everyone else's, but you have to have a combination of things that make it different, that make it desirable. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm just going to go out and sell, bonds or stocks or whatever it is. And what we found is that you have to have something that really differentiates yourself and talks to a particular market. And I think, as you found, Alaina, is getting into kind of with the people that you want to work with, is so important, as well as
Yeah.
the work that you're going to do. So if you looked at our products, when I left it Intel, obviously, we had a great advantage because I had knowledge of products that I had developed for Intel that we had tested there for big corporations. So that added some degree of uniqueness. I think one of the big differentiators for us, kind of that combination that really made us successful with our product, is that I'm what I call a recovering engineer. So myself and my business partners came from an engineering background that eventually, we moved into kind of doing the human development, and then we went back to school and did all of our doctoral work in organizational leadership. And so having the ability, to come from an engineering mindset to go over to kind of a management or leadership mindset, and being able to say, yes, I've done that, to be able to talk to product managers or people, particularly in high tech, that are struggling with this, being able to say, yes, I have been there, I've done that, was very, very unique. Most of the consultancies that we have seen are people that are great coaches, great facilitators, instructors. And I think a lot of times what they do is they have a good presence and a really good delivery, but they can't say, hey, I manage a team of 30 software engineers, to get products released for Apple and Microsoft, right?
Mhm.
They can't say that. So having that really made kind of our product very, very unique, because it was focused on something that brought our unique talents together as one, and it allows you to stand out in the crowd. So it's just not a me too kind of scenario. So that's the first thing, is think about kind of what you have, and maybe it's not one thing; it's a combination of things that is really attractive to your audience. So that would be the first piece.
I love it.
Well, so easy, right? But most people don't think about that. They think, well, I just want to go and do this, right? One of my friends said, I've always wanted to run a restaurant. It's like, okay, so he bought a franchise, and 2 years later, he was out $200,000 and had to close that. He had it was just a Me Too, one of a dozen fast foods in a strip mall. Had no experience. He ended up having most of his time was just hiring and firing people, because when you're
Yeah.
bringing people into fast food, I think it's just a revolving door. And he really didn't
Challenging.
think about, what was unique in particular of the product, and also placement of the product as well. So anyway, so think about the what you've got that's unique, kind of a combination of things, and then make that kind of your foundation of what you're going to offer.
Mm.
Right. So second P is what I call presence. Presence is this is kind of social media. This is, how are people going to find you, right? Yeah, one of the things I think we found is that most entrepreneurs really, really hate the sales side, right? They just want to do the work that they're competent in, that they have the experience, they have the knowledge, and they don't want to do the sales side. And you really, particularly when you start up a new firm, you have to have it's the 80-20 rule, and 80% of your time has to be out there selling. And it doesn't have to be the cold call selling, but you have to be doing things to get yourself in front of other people.
Mhm.
And the key is that you have to have a presence that will do that. And you really have to be, today you have to be on social media, right? To do that. So we use a tool called Meet Edgar. So the first thing I do every morning is I get up for about, I get up, and in 10 minutes, I spend 10 or 15 minutes. The tool gives me a stream. I use it sends me a stream of usually about 20 or 30 articles. It goes out and aggregates them for me. And then I read through them very, very quickly. Ones that I like, I say post, and ones that I don't, I say delete. And then I do some modifications here and there. So like it's 15 minutes to go through 20 articles. I don't read all 20 articles in depth, but I read the headlines and the main portion of them. And if it sounds good, it gets posted. And
Mhm.
then Meet Edgar posts. And there's, I think, other tools. We've used that one. We found it very, very friendly. And what it allows us to do is you set up a schedule for the week. You just continually just keep putting these in your library, and it posts everything at different times for LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube's. We have a Facebook page. You have a LinkedIn business page. And we do a little bit of Instagram, not so much. That's not really where our clients are, but it's mostly posting to LinkedIn and Twitter that gets us, and the Facebook business page that gets us the most. So you need to have that presence. And whether you do it yourself or you can hire a virtual assistant to do it, right? Particularly, a lot of people are not tech savvy. I like playing with the tech stuff, but there's a lot of people that are not. So go hire a virtual assistant. That's what we did when we started, right? They got us all set up and everything, and once it was all automated, we took it over. But we spent that money up front when we first opened up the business. So that's the first thing, is figure out, if you're not getting visible, go get visible. I'll give everybody a secret here. That I haven't seen very few people use, and it has been incredible for us. Set up a Google business page. I don't know if you've done this or anybody listening, whether they've done this or not. We have gotten um, tens of thousands of dollars of business through the Google business page. It doesn't come through heavily, but I'd say, every other month or so, we'll get a cold call of somebody looking for us for our shtick. And we asked them how it came through. And they said, we went to your Google business page. We read your reviews. And, if you Google Magna Leadership Solutions for us, we should show up on the first page, right? So Google likes that. It's free. It's easy to do. You can do it in 2 hours to kind of set it up. And what Google business page really likes is it likes photos. So we try to post a photo, every 30 days or so. It likes you doing articles, posting, and it likes some modifications, just a little bit. You can change your hours or a little bit in your description. And as long as you just pay just a little bit of attention there, you would be amazed of what you can do. And so you had mentioned some earlier things that you had read, like John Maxwell and Dale Carnegie and those type of things. If you go and you Google leadership development in Phoenix or Scottsdale in particular, will show up on the map in the #1 position. And that's from the Google business page. And it's because we have more reviews. We always try to have at least 1 or 2 more reviews than what the big companies are doing, Stephen Covey and so forth. So we always stay above that. Easy to do, completely free, very little time. So if you haven't done that, that's probably the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the third P, just to get through the 6 here, and then we can have any kind of open discussion you like, is you need people, right? You need a network. That's one of the things. One of where most of our clients come from, I would say, come through connections through LinkedIn. That's a big one for us when you're doing, corporate management, leadership development stuff, selling bigger ticket items, or doing executive coaching. And when I left at Intel, I had done enough LinkedIn development that, I had 1,500 people or so. Right now we are running about, we just peaked over 20,000. And I'd say of the 20,000, there's probably 15,000 of those that are executives. And then we figured out how to build that network. There's lots and lots of ways to do that. And one of the ways to do it is in the book that I had written with Rita Creasy-Reed, who was actually one of my students. So I've been teaching at 6 different universities and for management leadership development. And I spent 5 years at Arizona State University teaching in their executive master's program I helped develop for sustainability leadership. And one of my students had gotten downsized. She had graduated a couple of years before. We stayed in touch, and she said, "Hey, I unexpectedly got downsized, and I need to figure out how to get a job quickly. How can I do that?" So I said, "Well, we have a method that we developed for finding customers and clients that I think we could use the same process for you to find a job. I will coach you through this. I'll give you our complete process. So nothing hidden here. I'll give it all to you. With the understanding is that I'm not going to ask you to pay me for anything. When you're done and when you land that awesome job, which she did, I want you to write the book. I'll work with you on that, and that'll be your payment." And she said, "It's a deal." So we worked together and basically put her complete story of how that happened from, getting unexpectedly laid off, downsized, whatever you want to call it, to her kind of getting the position. And it was through using the power of LinkedIn, building the network, making connections, in the book that she tells you, here's all the steps. It's incredibly prescriptive. And you can buy it on Amazon, but for the show today, for those of you that stick around at the end of the show today, I will give you the link to the reviewer's copy, and anyone that's interested in building your network, finding more clients, getting more opportunities in a very prescriptive way. I'll give you the URL, and you can get the full reviewer's copy. It's the full book, and hopefully you'll like it, and it'll be helpful to you. And as anyone listening to it, once you've gotten it, if you have questions, we'll give you links on how to get in touch with me. Be glad to have a chat with you. Okay, so that's
Wow. Thank you. That's
the
amazing.
my pleasure. Yeah. So product first, presence, and people. The fourth item is what we call provisions. Use that trying to get it into a common process here of people provisions. And what you need is you need 18 to 24 months of cash in the bank, able to set up your company. That's recommendations, particularly if you're doing a consultancy, right? That most consultancies, I think it's 75 to 80%, go out of business in the first 2 years. And one of the main reasons is they don't have enough money. Like many of I had a recent call with someone that had gotten downsized from, they did some cutbacks for a big company. And he's been a friend of mine for many years. And he said, okay, I'm thinking about doing a consultant, to go out and be a consultant. And I said to him, Joe, how much money do you have to invest in this, right? Where you're not getting any money coming in. And he says, I can probably last for 5 months. And I said, go find a job with an organization. Because if you only have 5 months, you're going to be constantly, first of all, you're going to be constantly thinking about, oh, I'm not going to have enough money to pay the bills. And two, you're going to start making really bad decisions and taking work on because you have to, not because you want to. So
I see that all the time in my business as well. I have people come on board and we're all independent brokers, right? So I'm like, my job's to license and train you and like help you build a business. And they're like, I'm gonna go full time. And I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Like, don't do that. And I mean, because we're 100% commission based, it's a real reality check when you are like, no, I need to build consistent income before, I actually pull the trigger and quit my job. Right. But I got that opportunity, thankfully.
Yeah. So we had, that's great recommendation. And we had, when I was working with my mentor, I went out and got a financial advisor. I've had the same financial advisor for 30 years.
Yeah.
And Chris has been necessity, right? So when I left Intel, I remember, because I had a goal when I was 50, my financial advisor, Chris, called me and said, hey, everything that we've been working on for the last 10 years, you're ready. Anytime that you want to check out, you can do that because you have enough money, you have enough disposable or expendable cash where you can invest into yourself and to the company to be able to be successful. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, the other thing he did, which was, because he's a really brilliant guy, was he's talked me out of leaving. He said, we've had this target at 50, and, are you still learning? You're still having fun? Are you still building your network? Yes, 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 yes. He said, well, you might want to just rethink this because 50 is an arbitrary number. And so I didn't actually leave at 50. He said, look for kind of a message from God. Something's going to happen. And sure enough, like about 9 months later, they brought in a new VP into HR. And he decided that all this management and leadership stuff that we're doing, we're just not going to do that. I remember him saying to me, he was a finance guy. He said to me, we got a lot of damn smart engineers. Send them the freaking PowerPoints. They'll figure it out. And I said, I don't really, I don't think that's a great idea here.
Invest in your people.
Yeah, invest, right? And he said, I think, I think that's not needed. So go away. And so anyway, I said, great. Can you fire me? Can you lay me off? Can you let my job? I'm like, no, we still got work for you to do. But it just wasn't stuff that I wanted to do. So So we picked a date and we gave one more run at him. We said, let us do some financial analysis of how we think this is going to affect the culture and the people and the bottom line. And he said, okay. We worked on it probably about, a month and a half or so. We presented it to him and he said, nope, still not going to reinstate any of the programs. So that was at 3 o'clock, and at 4 o'clock, the three of us went and resigned. And
Yeah,
then
good for you.
sure enough, 2 weeks later, we had a business to start. So anyway, so it's just, it's having enough money in there so you don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
Um, and you just kind of take that and put it off, and you can't really think about it. It's an investment. It's not an
Yeah.
expense. So
There's
that's
another really good lesson in there that I want to point out because I'm in the financial industry and I deal with this all the time, but everyone thinks that retirement is like an age. I'm like, it's not an age. It's a
no,
dollar value in your bank account or like in your investment funds. Like the more money you have in your net worth, the closer you are to retirement. But it doesn't mean you have to retire at that age. It's just, no, you have the freedom to do with what you want, and you don't have to stress out.
right.
So
And that's one of the reasons having a financial planner is so important, right? That I said to Chris, here's where I want to be at 50, and here's where I want to be at 65. You know, in those ranges, it doesn't have to be an exact age, and we have to have some targets. So I need to be diligent. I need to be putting enough money away. First of all, I need to be earning enough money. Two, I need to be putting enough money away. And three, I need to make sure it's going into instruments that are going to be stable right throughout, all of the fluctuations that you get in the marketplace. So
Mhm.
so things as we've gotten older, which I'm sure you recommend as well, as you get older, things get much, much more conservative. And instead of shooting for that 10 to 15%, upside for kind of timing the market, you end up in the 3 to 7% range. But it's guaranteed, right? And it just builds over time. And, a great portfolio is going to double. I think it used to be every 7. I think right now it's more about every 10 years or so. And if you
Yeah,
can do
7 to
that,
10 is a good range. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we put that in place, and then um, he said, anything. I had another mentor outside of Intel, a guy by the name of Bill Daniels. Bill he wrote several books. His most famous one was Breakthrough Performance, and he was a consultant for Intel, and he and I became good friends. And he's the one that said you need 18 to 24 months in order to be able to invest in yourself. But the other thing that Bill told me is um, don't leave the work environment too early, right? Use that time kind of as a kind of a runway to get you started. And
Mhm.
he said, if you do make any money in the 18 to 24 months, just think of it as a windfall. So we made some money in the first 18 months. I remember we used to meet on a regular basis because my one partner was in Oregon, the other one was in Sacramento, and I was in Phoenix. We used to have our, every other day calls to build the business. And I still remember having the 18-month call, and we hadn't gotten the big order. We had things that were kind of dribbling in, but not sustainable to keep 3 people, give 3 people salaries. And I remember having that 18-month call of like, with the other two, it's like, maybe this was not such a good idea. And I said, have faith. We haven't hit 24 months yet. We have, the goal is to have 10. We used to use what we call the 10% rule. You need to have 10 really good potential clients in the pipeline so
Mhm.
that you can get one to hit. Unfortunately, our hit rates was a lot better than that. But it's a long-term relationship, and pretty much around 19 months, just about a month after, we got this giant, well, at that point in time, it was a giant PO, was, $750,000, or sorry, a third of $1 million, about $350,000 PO to develop a leadership program for a bigger um, tech company. And that sustained us for a couple of years, for a couple of years. So we did a lot of work for them. And then we have a little bit of a breather. And in the meantime, we filled that slot that came in with another potential. You have to keep renewing that. You can't just get dependent on one, because eventually same thing happened at Intel, right? That 2.5 years later, after we'd been working with this company and building their leadership development program, we trained 400 of their managers. They wanted to keep building. New VP came in, said, "You guys are out," and then everything went to zero the next day. Good news, we had, everything else in the pipeline. So that's the other thing is don't get kind of fat, dumb, and happy here. Just you have to always keep selling and keep building your network.
I love it.
All right, let's go to the last two. We have product, presence, people, and then the provisions, which was cash we just talked about. And the next thing, and this also came from Bill, as well as many of my other colleagues, you need a publication. And a publication, you need a hardcover book, not a soft cover, has to be hardcover, which was a little strange. I thought, okay, well, you definitely know that. And someone that's been successful, that's sold, thousands or tens of thousands of books. He said, you really need to have a hardcover book that really talks about your shtick, your unique process. And you should be able to hand that to a CEO or a C-suite executive. Just having the book in hand allows you to, gives you credibility, right? So we took that to heart. Dr. Ali Lakhani and I were partners. We started writing a book. Both of us are academics. We've taught at lots of universities, and we were speaking at a conference in San Francisco and driving in each day from Sacramento, because when you're first starting a company, you don't have a lot of extra cash. So San Francisco is really expensive. And we were speaking at a conference in San Francisco, a 3-day conference. So you're driving in each day, and when you have 2.5 hours in the car each way, you get to talk about a lot of things. And we were talking about the book and laying it out and so forth. And I finally said to him, how excited are you about doing this? And he said, I'm not excited at all. It's like, I don't want to do this. It's like, okay. So I said, why don't, rather than write this academic book, try to dump all of our knowledge, why don't we just write something that's fun? And we talked about different movies and books and interests that we had. And we stumbled upon that our favorite movie and book was The Wizard of Oz. And I said, that's it. Let's write a book. We'll call it The Leader of Oz. Right. And he said, yeah, there's got to be 1,000 people that have done that. So we went back home that night after the conference, got onto the Library of Congress, looked to see if there was anyone had done that. No one had done that. So we grabbed the name, and then we wrote the book, and we committed to have the book for another conference. That's the other thing, is the best way to write a book is get committed. So we committed to do a conference in Las Vegas about 6 months later.
Cool.
And
that's time pressure.
And we said, yeah, well, here's what we're going to do. And it's going to be based on this book. He said, great. And they booked us. And now we've got a deadline. So we have to create it. We shopped it to a bunch of publishers, and they were all, yeah, we're interested in doing that. And if everything goes well, we can get it done in 12 to 18 months. It's like, no, we got 6 months. And the publisher said, no, we can't do that. So we did the self-publishing, highly recommended. And today you can publish on Kindle, on Kindle's platform, super, super easy. We used a company called Lightning Source, fantastic, by the way. So if you're looking to publish a book, do so. Work with a partner to do that. We tried a ghostwriter. You can hire ghostwriters to help you out. That did not work so well. We didn't vet him very well, and it was taking us more time doing the edits. So we finally decided that we were just going to write the book. and we're getting ready to do our third printing of it. So it's been
Cool.
incredibly valuable, and it's brought us lots of business.
Cool.
So yeah, so write the book. It's a whole lot easier than you would think. And then the one thing I would recommend is get a good final editor. So that's what we did, is we found a final editor, and then we gave it to her and we said, okay, we've written the book, make it so that it flows really well and hits all of the points that we wanted. She did a absolutely fantastic job. So find an editor that's done this before and been successful. All right, so that's the fifth item. We got one more item, which is, I think, probably the most important, or one of the most important elements, is persistence. Right, you need to have that determination to continue during difficulty
Uh-huh.
times, right? And I think the best thing to do, kind of, Alaina, that you had talked about, is getting a coach, a mentor, someone to be there, someone that you can tap into, because a lot of people will come. I do a lot of executive coaching and business coaching for people, and most people will tell you, I'm just starting out, or I really need help, but I really can't afford to pay for a coach. And my question to them is, um, if you could get your business uh, off the ground that much sooner, a month sooner, 2 months sooner, 6 months sooner, what do you think the value of that would be?
Mhm.
Right. And we always do everything, even when we price our leadership programs, it's always value pricing. Is, tell us what your turnover is. We can give you things that will cut your turnover. Usually can't get it to zero, but most of the time we can get it cut in half. So most people don't know what that is. So we help them figure it out. We've got a couple tools to help them identify that. And, one of the big companies we've done recently, had, when they calculated the cost of their turnover, was about $7.5 million.
Wow.
It's like, okay, we can't get all of that. We could probably get, you know, um, well, what say if we got 10% of that? We could save you, $750,000. Would you be interested? I'm like, well, yeah, of course you would. Of course they would. It's like, okay, what would you like as a return on investment? How much would you want to spend to get $700,000 back in your bank account? What would you like, a 2 times return on investment, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times? Usually we get at least 5 or 10 times return on investment. And how about a 10 times return on investment? Would you invest $70,000 to get 700,000 back, and we'll guarantee that? Well, yeah, of course I do that. Okay, there you go. There's your price, 70,000.
Right?
Whatever it is, right? And you
Yeah.
need to do the same thing when you're thinking about kind of being persistent, or, you can't just do it on your own. You need to have other people to help accelerate that, right?
Mhm.
And so you need to have that coach, and a lot of really good business coaches are going to charge. It's going to be a monthly charge, whatever it is. The people are all over the range, a couple thousand a month. But the question is if you can accelerate your business and land a $50,000 contract, in 1 month instead of 6 months, that's 5 extra months that you've got money coming in, that you didn't have. So
Exactly.
yeah, so think about that, and then also, if you're working with the coach, uh, get them to provide some guarantees of advancement for you, right? Get them to have some kind of skin in the game. So,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
those are the six: product, presence, people, provisions, publications, and persistence.
I love it. Yeah, that last one there really stands out to me because in the last couple of years, I've been like, okay, things have changed a lot. I've had some health stuff happening, and I was just like, oh man, like just down and out. And I'm like, no, I just have to continue to push myself to be more excellent. And so this morning I got up, I read my book. I made sure that I got some exercise and got some water, got my
Yeah,
smoothie.
yeah,
And you just feel so much better because when you're confident in the fact that you're going to pursue it, regardless
Hmm.
of success or failure, you're still going to learn something about yourself. You're going to learn something about what you're trying to do better as well, and like little hacks that you can do for yourself so that you're setting yourself up for those successful habits as well. And I think that that is a big piece of persistence, just that confidence in yourself going, hey, we're going to make this happen because we're winners, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing along this that same line is kind of piggyback off of that is that most people have an unrealistic metric or measurement system in place. And the kind of stuff that we're talking about here is that you can't measure and cause and effect relationship. You can't say, well, I put 2 hours in working on this marketing piece, so I'm going to get 2 hours back.
Right.
Or I'm going to get two hours of what I would charge from another client, right? It's not a cause and effect. It's correlational, not causational. And the key is that you need to be thinking longer term of
Yes.
how to measure success. You're certainly going to measure the milestones, but if you really want to build your business like kind of we did, we had that 18 to 24 month. We wanted to have some milestones in place. Our milestones were, do we have 10 clients in the pipeline that we're actively working? We're getting feedback where there's some potential. Yes, 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 yes. You want to keep having that in. But if you're measuring about how many have I done, if I have 10, you can't get one every month for 10 months. That's just not realistic,
Mhm.
because you're selling products that are take a little bit more time. So make sure that you have a measurement system that's realistic. And if you can do that, then you can maintain that persistence and that outlook.
I love that. Well, I would love people to get more access to you. And of course, your book. I'm super excited about that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm very much going to read that. So, where can people get access to you? I know your website's on the screen, but for those of the people that are just listening in with us today.
Well, so if you look at the screen over here, where is it? There it that's actually the URL to the book, right?
Oh,
It's
cool.
been sitting there the whole time, right? So it's https:// and it's Magna Leader, Magna leader.co, not com, .co, right? magnaleader.co / and a capital J as in just for you, right? And that'll take you to the PDF of the reviewer's copy. And if you'd like to leave if you've read it and you'd like to leave us a review, fantastic. We would love to have a review. One of the things that we did do is originally the book was listed on Amazon under Rita's name. It says Rita Creasy Reed with Kevin Gazzara. She did most of the work, and I wanted to give her the credit for it. She wanted me to be in there, and I just said, no, you did a good portion of the work. I did a lot of the editing and guidelines and so forth, but you did most of the writing. So I want you to get full billing. Once she got her new job, she said, hey, I'm not going to do a consultancy any longer. So can we relist that under your name? So when Amazon moves a book over, just any FYI for anyone, all of the reviews that you have under the previous author or the co-author all go away.
Interesting.
So we had all these awesome reviews when we launched it. And when we moved it over, which we didn't know ahead of time, none of the reviews came over. So we're rebuilding our reviews now that it's been moved over, and I'm managing the kind of the sales of that.
Cool. I love
Okay,
it.
so that's one. So that's the way to get a hold of the book, right? So enjoy the book. If you want to get a hold of me, you can go to our website, which is magnaleadership.com. That's to show all the products and things that we do. Or people can just reach out to me directly, right? If you have a question on the book or something I've mentioned in the podcast here, you'd like to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. How can I get a hold of you? I'd like to get some insight from you. Send me email to kevin@magnaleadership.com, and I'll send you a link to my calendar. You pick a time, and I'll be glad to have a conversation with you. And my promise to anyone that does that, absolutely no selling. There will be no selling. I'm not going to push anything on you. My personal goal is to help as many people as I can. You
Mhm.
know, I feel I've been very, very blessed with what the world has given me. And the last 15 years that we've been in business, it's our function in life to give back,
Mhm.
so that we can help smaller companies be as successful as many larger companies are.
I love that. Well, thank you for committing your life to that because it is needed. And I'm grateful for that. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I can
Mhm.
do better at this. I like this one. Yeah. I definitely wish that I had someone like you when I first went full time in my business. But I know everyone got a ton of value out of today. So, guys, if you did, make sure you get access to Kevin again. I'll post all of his social media and websites and stuff in the show notes so you can access it through there. And make sure you share with a friend. We're a holistically grown episode. And I think that if you liked it, someone else might also get lots of value out of it. So please do share the show. And until next time, that's Pursuit of Relentless signing out.
Okay, thanks, Alaina. Bye now.